The second you say I can't have it, well, now I want it.
100%. It's always like the 80-20 rule, right? When I saw clients, as I worked as a nutritionist and PA, I did a lot of nutritional coaching. And I always told my clients, like 80-20. You got to 80% of the time really, really hone in and do the right things, but you have to enjoy your life. Mm-hmm.
And what happens if you do end up with a fussy eater? Well, welcome to another episode of the Raising Humans Project, and I am here today with the beautiful Kathy Abraham. Kathy, we are so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Sheree. I'm so happy to be here. I can't wait.
Yeah. And so Kathy is a powerhouse entrepreneur woman. That is how I know her, through the Live Out Loud community that we're both a part of. You are a mum to Joshua and Isaac, and wife to Dr. Andrew Abraham. And you have many accomplishments under your hat, which I can't wait to hear about. But one of them is that together with your husband, Andrew, you founded Orgain.
Yep. Thank you.
Which is a nutrition supplement company.
Yes.
And so we're here today really to talk about all things nutrition and the importance of developing a healthy relationship with food from a young age.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, and you're too generous with your intro, but thankfully, I've got to experience so many cool things on this journey of life with my husband and my two children, and creating Orgain has been such a blessing for us, and we're still journeying, together and learning so much, but it's been such a rewarding experience for sure.
I love that. We're always on the journey.
Yeah.
Never ending, especially as parents, right? You think you just got it sorted out, and then they bump up into that next age range and you're like, cool, I know nothing. Great. So how about you start off by telling us a little bit about Orgain and how and why you started the company and kind of your heart behind it.
Yeah. So, the timing was not ideal. I was pregnant with our first child, and my husband was in medical school. He was a resident working 100-hour weeks, and I was in PA school at Loma Linda. So we were very busy living in a small little apartment in Riverside, and my husband had battled cancer at a younger age when he was 17. And then his dad had also had battled cancer, and recently again. And finding proper nutrition was just always a challenge for them. So when we found out again that his dad had cancer, it really, really stirred something up in Andrew to create this product. There really wasn't anything like it at all in the market. And I just remember him coming home with his scrubs on and being like, Kathy, we're going to do this. And at the time, I already had my master's in nutrition. So he said, you need to help me. Like, if you could formulate like the healthiest, whole meal in the world to be put into a shake, what would it be? And I'm like, okay, so we're doing this. And he's like, yes. We took out a poster board. We wrote down how many carbs, how many protein, grams of fat. And, by the grace of God, we formulated this, the world's first ready to drink organic, shake. And so now it's just grown so much, and so many different SKUs, and so many different countries, that it's sold in. But that was really the original reason.
Amazing. Yeah. That is quite the journey. And how long ago would that have been?
So I was pregnant with my first son, Isaac. He's 16, so 17 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Isaac and Joshua.
Joshua's my younger.
How old's Joshua?
Joshua is 15 right now.
15 and 16?
Yeah.
That's close.
Yeah, we had
What
them
was
pretty
the gap?
close. 15 months. Ooh. Irish twins, I guess they
Yeah,
call
right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and so how has your knowledge of nutrition, I guess, and this amazing company that you guys have grown, how has that shaped the way that you have raised your children around nutrition and healthy eating? Yeah.
So, it's a very, very important aspect of our lives. And, my husband and I have always been very, very interested in nutrition, study of nutrition. And that was actually like our first date. That's all we talked about. He was quizzing me about vitamin C and tomatoes. And I was like, I think I surprised him with my knowledge. But, it's something that we value as a family. And so raising children, as, when my babies were little, they were always helping me in the kitchen, always helping me, prepare food. I remember them being so excited when they could finally turn the stove on or open the oven, because they were little. They had their little stools and they had their aprons. And I always was like, I don't have a girl. I have two boys. Are they even going to be interested in cooking or the kitchen? I always grew up really close to my mom, doing those things with her in the kitchen. But to my surprise, my boys were so excited to cook with me and bake with me, create healthy things at home. So I think involving them from a young age is just so important. And that's what we did. They were always involved in prepping their meals and knowing about food. We always taught them about the value of nutrition, like reading labels now. My kids won't put anything in their mouth until they, look at labels and they're like, okay, yeah, this doesn't have all the bad stuff, in there. I can eat this. It's good for me. So really educating them, but also just having, creating that healthy relationship with food, like you had mentioned, like food is there to nourish you and like help you through life, and just talking them through that, I think in their stages of life has been really helpful. Yeah.
How about when they were around, perhaps when they got a little bit older and they got on play dates or to birthday parties? Were you one of the parents that were like, well, we don't eat that in our house? Or
no, I'm a very balanced approach, even with myself. It's always like the 80-20 rule, right? I think that's, when I saw clients, as I worked as a nutritionist in PA, I did a lot of nutritional coaching, and I always told my clients like 80-20. You got to 80% of the time really, really hone in and do the right things, but you have to enjoy your life too. There's a little bit of a leeway there, right? We can't be so strict. So my kids definitely, they have pizza, they have In-N-Out, they'll have a cupcake or a piece of cake here and there, but really they know that majority of the time they're practicing healthy habits, but at a birthday party they're enjoying themselves. So yeah.
Okay, what were some of the other, I guess, habits that you built into them from young, like when they were literally first having their first bites, 9 to 12 months? How can you get kids to get off to a strong start from those early baby to toddler years to make sure that, they don't develop into picky eaters later on? I say this with someone with a picky eater. No judgment-free zone.
Well, I really tried to expose them to all kinds of cuisine and all kinds of food at an early age, right? So at 1 year old, my son was eating like sushi, and so just because I didn't want them to be so limited and be that child that could only have chicken nuggets and fries,
Yeah.
So I wanted them to have a variety of foods. I wanted their palate to get used to that. So, I would try all the exotic fruits and vegetables at home. And so I'd rotate just different foods for them so that they that way they were more open to it as they got older. We can go out to nice dinners or go to, people's homes, and they wouldn't be like turned off. They would be excited to try something that was a little outside their comfort zone or new to them. So I think that's really important. I mean, I also think that, as you develop as a child, when you're introducing foods, of course, you don't want their taste buds to get used to anything like too sweet or too because then it'll be really hard to introduce like green beans or broccoli, if all they're eating is sweet potato. So I think also just slowly introducing those food groups later, the sweeter things, trying to delay that a bit because the sweet tooth can really kick in and then they will always crave that sweetness. And so I think delaying that a little bit is also helpful.
Yeah, it's super interesting because a lot of those first baby foods, whether they're shop bought or whether you make them yourself, tend to be like the mashed banana. Yeah. Or the stewed apple or something that's super sweet.
It is, yeah. So I would definitely hold off until, a few months at least.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And what happens if you do end up with a fussy eater? Two fingers raised here. Yeah.
I mean, you got to pick your battles, right? And so I think within the fussy eater, you need to say, okay, what do they like, And even if it's just at least one or two fruits that they enjoy, or at least offer those fruits often, so they are getting at least some nutrients from those fruits or those vegetables. So working around your fussy eater is important, and just trying to maybe push them a little bit outside their comfort zone, maybe just to try here and there new things, and variety I think is important. But that is actually one of the reasons why we did create the Orgain Kids shake.
Kathy brought some with her today. Yeah. We're going to try it as we're chatting because I've only heard delicious things about this.
This is our chocolate one. Yeah. It comes in vanilla and strawberry. We also have a fruity cereal, flavor that's really popular with the kids. So this is actually one of the reasons why we created this, but I'll try it with you.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty good.
Wow. Because normally really these, like the protein drinks, they kind of have that funky aftertaste to them. But this really does just taste like really delicious chocolate milk.
Yeah, that's what we really wanted to avoid, that aftertaste. And chocolate milk is really the go-to drink, right, for kids, but it's just so full of sugar. So this, this is like a very healthy alternative to chocolate milk. It still tastes really good, but it has 60% less sugar than chocolate milk does. It has 8 grams of protein from grass-fed protein, actually, from New Zealand, 3 grams of fiber, and just, a ton of fruits and vegetables in here. So if you do have picky eaters, we have a lot of family and friends who their child, needs to have 1 or 2 of these a day. Yeah. And, the parent doesn't feel so bad, doing that. So it's great in between meals. If you're on the go, got to go to soccer practice and you want to avoid those fast food drive-thrus. Yeah. It's a great alternative for that. So,
yeah. What about, so in Australia, I'm not sure that we have Orgain in Australia. I swear I've seen it, but I feel like it might have been in my Amazon
Okay.
shop front. I can't find it in the shops.
Yeah.
What should I then be looking out for in terms of some of these pre-made meal? Well, they're not really meal replacement drinks, but they are, because there's so many of them are just filled with filler
I know.
and bad, nasty stuff.
Yeah.
So for people who might not have Orgain at their local store, what should they be looking out for?
Yeah. I think the first thing you want to see is look at the nutrition facts, right? How much sugar is really in there? First of all, usually they hide a lot of sugar, right? And then look at the ingredients. The first ingredient will always be the one that's the most concentrated in the product, right? And the last will be the least. So what are you putting in your body? So what is that first ingredient? What is the second ingredient? What are the third ingredient? You know, if you really can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be consuming it.
Yeah.
So really watch out for extra fillers and gums, you know, carrageenan and sucralose. What is it sweetened with? You know, we use only organic monk fruit and stevia in all of our products. So, natural sweeteners versus artificial sweeteners, that's so important too. So, those are some things I'd look out for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now that your boys are getting a little bit older, they're in their teenage years.
Yeah.
Are they pushing back a little bit on the nutrition thing? Like I know we talked about the 80-20 rule.
Oh, yeah.
You've really instilled those, those core family values
Yes.
around good nutrition. You're finding that because you did that at a young age,
Yes.
that as teenagers, there's like not so much pushback now.
It is so funny, Sheree. I feel like the tables have turned. Like, I'm like, boys, what do you want tonight? Let's do pasta. Let's do pizza. Like, Mom, that's not really healthy. Like, I want to eat something good. Can we do like homemade Chipotle bowls? I'm like, if you can grill the chicken and the steak yourself, absolutely we can. So it is so funny. They are counting their macros, you know, they are really, really in tune with that. So my son now drives, my older son, so he'll, on his way home from school, go to the butchery or go to Trader Joe's and get all the organic meats and we'll marinate it and he'll cook for us. So we're very spoiled and lucky. But really, it's funny. I'm not really getting pushback from them. I'm getting it from them more than the other way around. So they really are in tune with what they're putting in their bodies now a lot more than I expected. So I'm proud.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
That's not no small thing.
Yeah, it's great.
In this day and age for teenagers to understand, you know, have at least a basic. I mean, obviously with your backgrounds, it's probably a bit more than a basic understanding of nutrition. We were talking earlier before the show about some of the like in terms of the carbs, like the macros.
Yeah.
For those of us who don't have a nutrition background, how do we talk to our kids about that, and what's sort of the guidelines around how they should be eating?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very simple mathematic equation. I think for kids, they're very visual. And so I would always tell them, like, look at your plate, and think of dividing your plate into threes. So the big macronutrients are, carbs, protein, and fats. And so you want like half your plate probably to be healthy carbs. I would say about 40 to 50% of your plate should be good carbs. And that comes in the forms of vegetables, right? So greens, trying to get like that rainbow effect in your food is so important, because every time you hit a different color, you're getting a different phytonutrient. You're getting a different antioxidant exposure that you just can't get in like a pill form or in a vitamin, right? So you want to get yourself used to that rainbow effect. Also, healthy carbs are like sweet potatoes, complex carbs, things that take a long time for your blood sugar and your body to process. They're slow releasing energy. And it's so important for a growing child to have these carbs, because they help fuel your brain. They help give like energy to your muscles. So these kids are playing sports and so forth. So they need to have these good, healthy, complex carbs. So sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, oats, those are really good complex carbs. And then I'd say about 35% protein. So a really good lean protein, preferably organic, preferably grass-fed, fish, meat, eggs, chicken, and then fats, healthy fats. About 10 to 20% of your diet should be healthy fats. And so that usually comes in the form of olive oil, flax seeds, chia seeds, salmon, avocado is wonderful. Love avocado.
Ghee?
So ghee is great. Yeah. We use grass-fed organic ghee. Yeah. So those are all healthy fats. And again, fat is so important for brain development for children, right? Even as adults, we need it for hormone regulation and so forth. So children really need this healthy fat. And so it's the balance too. It's not just the isolated carb, the isolated protein, the isolated fat that works for you.
Yeah.
It's really having them together in conjunction. There is a synergistic effect.
Yeah.
And the body now can regulate its hormones, regulate its energy, its insulin, and to keep you like really stable and healthy throughout the day, just to have that energy and vitality so that you can go and do your best in whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's so important.
Okay. What are your go-to family recipes? What are your
Yeah.
If you are just home from school pickup, you got to get the homework out the door, and then on to the sports. You're going to sit down and have a family meal because I know how important that is to you. We're
Yes.
speaking about that as well, to
Yes.
have a meal around the table.
Yes.
Well, what are you cooking?
Yeah, taco night is always popular. It's super easy, and just, having all those toppings out there are so fun because everyone can customize their plates and their bowls. So whether your child wants a hard shell or a soft shell, it's all out there. My husband and I make our own little deconstructed bowls, and they make their tacos. So that's always a fun option and easy, super easy. I love the crock pot. It's like my best friend. So I try to put something in there in the morning and not think about it, and then I come home to like a warm, healthy meal in the crock pot.
Yeah.
So usually I'll put lots of chicken breasts and just some broth and some seasonings and just have a good base of protein that I can build an easy meal around. So those are usually just my go-to simple recipes. And yeah, I think like you had mentioned, having that family time around the table is another thing that we really, really, really implemented from a young age. We told the boys, we don't care if you have sports. We are having dinner as a family.
Yeah.
And that has been literally our lifesaver. Now that they're teenagers, they still know that around 6 or 7 p.m., like everyone's putting away their phone. We are all having a meal around the table. We pray together. Everyone talks about, their highs and lows, what they're struggling with, what they need. It's our bonding time, and it's just really grounds us as a family. So I really recommend that families build this habit as their children grow, because whatever they do, wherever they go, wherever they fly, they'll flock, they'll always come back to the table.
So true.
They're always going to come home for that meal. So create your family time around those meals.
Yeah.
Because they'll be there with you like forever.
Yeah.
Well,
My kids are all grown now, but when, those busy teenage years, we did have a lot of sports practices, and we couldn't do it every night anymore, but they always knew, we don't have Taco Tuesday, we do Nacho Tuesday.
Oh, even better.
But funnily enough, they kind of roll their eyes and like, what's for dinner, Mum? And I'm like, well, it's Tuesday. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's been the same thing for 10 years now. And there was a pushback even recently because I work with all my children. So, I see them. But they all come back on a Tuesday night. And now that, like, we're over here in California, I get a text going, oh, yeah, we're all catching up for nachos tonight. They're all at our house.
Oh.
2 of them don't live at home now. Doing Nacho Tuesday.
See that?
It's still their family
amazing.
thing, even when we're not there. So it's super important.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I did want to ask, obviously the cost of living is crazy right now. I know it is in Australia, and it certainly is over here in America. For families who might not be able to afford organic, for example, or on a budget around food, what are some ways to still be able to focus on nutrition and healthy eating, but do it in a sort of a budget-friendly way?
Yeah. I think there are some things you can get away with that are necessarily not really needed to be organic, right? And I think you should focus on the things that have, like, there's they call it the dirty dozen. I'm sure you've heard of it. Right.
Yeah.
Clean 15 or dirty dozen is like the top 12 foods that really, really absorb pesticides and sprays and chemicals that you really want to make sure are organic. So usually there are they're the fruits and vegetables that don't have a thick skin around them, like berries are in the ground. So they're absorbing a lot of those pesticides. So berries and lots of greens, they're not protected. But something like an orange or a banana, it's not that important because they have those strong peels. You can peel the orange, you can peel the banana. So I say even the avocado, like things like that, you don't necessarily need to spend the extra money, right, to go organic. I think it's important with children too, that really, as much as possible, that the dairy be organic, because there is a lot of extra hormones in the chicken and in the milk that can cause a lot of hormonal and growth issues in children. So I feel that maybe there is a good splurge to keep organic if possible, like the milk at home. But I think everything else, if you do a little research and you can pick and choose what's really important, you'll be able to save definitely some money there.
Yeah. Okay. And now, Kathy, I know that faith is something that is super important in your life. It's something that I really admire about you is your beautiful and strong faith in God. How do you tie that in around nutrition? Because we've had some great chats about this as well. And I just think that the way that you approach it is really great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I really don't think they're really separate. I do think they're one thing. They're one entity. And really, the Christian life is a whole life. It encompasses everything that God has given us. And our bodies is definitely one of them, right? It's a huge gift from God. It's a huge responsibility,
Yeah.
had God, and God tells us to care for our bodies. So, if you read 1 Corinthians chapter 6, Paul really talks to the Corinthians about caring for their bodies, and he says, your body is the temple of Christ. And he says, it's not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, you have to honor your body. And he says, the Lord is for the body and the body's for the Lord. Like, basically, our bodies are not even ours. It's ours to steward in this life.
Yeah.
So when you understand that and you have that mentality, you really realize that it is so important, how you care for your body. So it's something that needs to be valued and cared for as a good steward for God, and for your faith. And so looking at it from that point of view, you have a holy reverence almost and a respect for your body. Like, I really need to care for this body of mine. It's really something that I can't just put trash in or not sleep and expect to function, or, all the core, pillars of health are really tied into our faith. And really when we do that, our bodies work for us, not against us, right?
Yeah.
We are prevented from diseases. We're prevented from sicknesses. We're working at our optimal level, and that's the goal, right? So that we can go out there in the world and do what God's created us to do, and be the best versions of that as we care for our bodies. So I really believe that, when we have that mentality that we're stewards of this body, it really helps you approach nutrition in a very different way.
Yeah. What about families that might have older children or school-age children who perhaps haven't had a massive focus or intention behind the nutrition as a family, who want to now, perhaps they've heard this podcast or perhaps it's just been on their hearts, or they're facing some health challenges to change up the way that they approach it. Where's a good start?
Yeah, I always say start small, and with my clients, my nutrition clients, even in weight loss, they would come in and be like, listen, I'm struggling. And I would say, I always like to have a positive approach on life. I just think it makes life so much more enjoyable, easier to work with, and propels you forward. So I say, instead of saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, you can't have this, you can't have this, I say, let's add this. Let's try this. Let's set new goals for you this week to eat 4 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. And I will give them a chart and I'll say, I need you to eat, and then when they do those things, all of a sudden they're omitting the bad habits, and they're just replacing them with good habits. So I tell them, I challenge you, have a handful of nuts every day. Eat like 4 or 5 servings of fruits that are high in fiber. Don't eat any carbs on an empty stomach, or don't eat naked carbs. Naked carbs are carbs alone. And have you heard of that?
I have not.
Something so simple like that can really change, because when you eat naked carbs or any sort of carb alone, what happens is that you're spiking your blood sugar, right? Your pancreas is releasing all this insulin, trying to help you regulate your system, bring down your blood. And so you're going to get this spike, and then you're going to get this crash, and you're going to feel awful, right? And so we want to avoid that. And that leads to all kinds of metabolic issues later down the line. So really, when you have a carb, you always want to pair it with something else, like a protein or fat. So I challenge my clients too, and I think this is a good start even for children. Don't just grab a bowl of cereal. Make sure you're putting nuts in your cereal. Grab a low sugar cereal and put high protein. Sometimes I put protein powder in our cereal. Sometimes we use Orgain, actually, the 30-gram Orgain.
Forgot that was here.
Yes.
It's so good.
We pour it in a bowl as milk, and then my kids put their cereal on top of it. So they're getting 30 grams of protein with their carbs.
Perfect.
Yeah. So that's what I would say, start implementing and adding those things, try to just, instead of maybe just a protein bar in the morning, maybe try an egg or 2, small things. I just say, suggest adding healthy things, and you'll notice that, over time, those habits will stack up.
So it's almost like focusing on what you can have instead of just not what you can't have.
100%.
I always used to say, it's almost like that original sin of man where you can't have that.
Right.
Well, now I want it.
Exactly.
The second you say I can't have it, well, now I want it.
100%.
So, it becomes a battle of the will.
Right. Right.
I actually studied at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition out of New York, online, obviously, being in Australia at the time. And they taught very early on about the crowding out theory. It was great. They taught a lot of different theories and principles and different ways, because everyone's different.
Right.
What suits you might not suit me. I
Correct.
mean, we were discussing mainly adults at the time, not
Yeah.
specifically kids, but I really liked their theory, the crowding out theory. Have you heard of that
No,
one?
can you explain that?
So it's basically what you were talking about, whereby instead of taking everything out, you can't have the sugar,
crowding out.
you can't have the this.
Yes.
You add in
Yes.
8 glasses of water or 2 liters of water
Yes.
a day. You add in your 4
Yes.
pieces of high fiber fruits. You're not
Right.
worrying about the sugar. You're not
No.
worrying about the bag of pretzels you have every afternoon.
Exactly.
And eventually it starts crowding out
Correct.
all of the other stuff because, high fiber, 2 gallons of water.
You're full.
You're full.
Yep.
2 gallons, 2 liters. The confusing metric system when I go between countries.
No problem.
And it works really well for kids
Yeah,
though, because
does.
again, the second you tell them, well, you can't have that
Yeah.
anymore. If they're used to having
Right.
a chocolate bar on the way home from school every
Yeah.
day, that's going to be really hard for them. Sugar is addictive.
Exactly.
We are creatures of habit.
100%.
Routines are important. But if they have their chocolate bar on the way home, and then when they get home, you're filling them up with some healthier snacks, plain popcorn and a piece of high fiber fruit and different things, then they're less likely to eat more junky food later in the
100%.
day.
Yep.
And eventually they're creating the new habits that
Yeah.
will hopefully crowd out that chocolate bar after
Yeah.
school altogether.
Exactly. No, I
Yeah.
think that's a great theory. It's so true. I've seen that happen, in my own life, and that's my approach always. And it's been my approach with my clients, and I see it for them too. And I always tell people, like, what do you love? Like, you need to enjoy life. So if you really love popcorn and you need to have popcorn every day, yes, you can have popcorn every day. Let's talk about how to make it healthy. Let's talk about a way. Are you getting organic popcorn? Can you make it at home? Do it.
Yeah.
And if you do, you're not depriving yourself from the one thing you love, but you're doing it in a way that is good for you and sustainable. Do you have to have chocolate every day? Sure, you can have chocolate every day, but have it at the end after a piece. Yeah, after your meal, not before your meal. Make it a high quality chocolate. Maybe it's a 70% cocoa. So it's good for you. It has those bioflavonoids and it has less sugar. So there are ways around it. Create the cookie that you love in a healthy way, using dates and not sugar. So you can find alternatives to continue to have those things that you love. You're not depriving yourself, but you're kind of recreating it and just in an approach that is long term going to be okay and good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have one other question. You mentioned before about how important good sleep is.
Yeah.
We know that as adults, and certainly it's important for kids. Now, I've got ADHD, as does my kids, and my son and I particularly don't sleep well. We're not great sleepers, and we have tried a lot to help that nutrition-wise. Do you have any suggestions in terms of sleep?
Yeah. I think so. Sleep is one of those things you have to kind of approach from all different angles, right? It's not just nutrition. It's, putting away your screens before you go to bed. It's giving yourself that downtime. It's all of those things, right? Waking up in the morning and getting the sunlight in your eyes so that you can produce melatonin later in the day. There's a lot of scientific evidence about all these different habits for sleep, and even my husband got me this for Christmas to track my sleep. The Oura Ring. I was so against it because every morning he'd wake up and just give me his report, and I'm like, thanks, I didn't really need to know this. And then he got me one, and now I'm addicted. So now I check my sleep report every morning. I'm like, oh, I'm not getting as much good sleep as I want. So I'm more, paying attention now, the blue light before I go to bed. And even my son, I hear him wake up in the morning and open the door. I'm like, what did you do? He's like, I'm just resetting my circadian rhythm, Mom. I'm like,
I love
okay.
that.
Yeah, so he has one too. So, habits like that. But when it comes to nutrition, there are definitely some things that can help and hinder good sleep. So one, do not eat, right before bed. Typically, you should have at least 3 to 4 hours of digestive rest before bed because the digestive system naturally slows down at night, and so when you have a heavy meal, your brain is not going to really give you that rest because your body's still working to digest that food. So you really want to just eat earlier, give yourself at least 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed, having a heavy meal. And heartburn too. A lot of people get heartburn before they go to bed, and that can really hinder sleep. So also before you go to bed, having tryptophan-rich foods is really good for you. So, and foods rich in magnesium. Magnesium is great for sleep and for muscle relaxation. So a handful of nuts, a Brazil nut, is great right before bed.
So you can have those right before bed?
If you need to have a small snack, you can have that.
Okay.
Or incorporate that into your later meal, to make sure you're getting those sort of nutrients. Turkey has a lot of tryptophan in it, so that's good.
What's tryptophan?
Tryptophan is an amino acid, and it is the kind that you find in turkey. That's why they always talk about that Thanksgiving turkey coma.
Okay.
They relate it to the
We've not been
tryptophan.
in America for Thanksgiving yet, but I vote your house if we
You can
if
come
we end
over
up here. Great.
and get your tryptophan fix. But it's really it's just amino acid that really like relaxes you, and it just like has that kind of sedative effect, I guess you could say, on some of the neurotransmitters. So it's natural. It's found in a lot of fruits and a lot of nuts and especially turkey. I think a cup of chamomile tea is just does
I love
wonders.
chamomile tea.
Yeah, so do I. It's my go-to every night. And it's just also the idea of having that comfort, slowing down. You got to kind of signal to your body like, hey, we're getting ready to go to bed here. We got to start slowing down our day, slowing down the brain, slowing down the body, because it's really giving your body signals like we're going to enter sleep now. Because all day long, we're putting out fires and we're just going, right? 100 miles an hour. So we really need to give ourselves that time to rest. So I think just preparing our bodies for that, which is avoiding those heavy meals before bed, avoiding the fried food and the greasy foods and the things that are really going to slow our digestive systems down, and just having the lighter meals and some of the tryptophan-rich meals and foods would be really helpful.
Can kids have chamomile tea?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, can
of
they?
course.
Okay,
Because they give them to infants sometimes with colic.
Yeah, right. I did not know that.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, Kathy, you've been such a wealth of knowledge. This is super helpful. I am definitely going to try some of those things, even though my kids are grown up. But
Well,
I think as a family, even when you do have young adult children, it's never too late to model great nutrition habits.
Absolutely. And they'll be parents before you know it.
Crazy. Oh gosh.
So they're going to want these this knowledge passed down as they parent their children and the next generation. So we're all learning and we're all in this together, but it's just so much fun to be on this journey. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's been so wonderful to have you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We'll chat later.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today on the Raising Humans project. We'd love it if you'd leave a comment below. Tell us what you want to hear about and who you want to hear from.
Yeah. Who are the top parenting voices in the world today? Let us know.
Yeah, because we're running out of people to talk to.
We're not running out of people to talk to. Look, if you can please like, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to be notified of future episodes, and we will see you next week. Well, I'll see you at home because we parent together.
Please tell your mates because we want people to hear this.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.